I'm the lead.
I'm Dr. John.
And this is Mike West.
Yeah, a friend of ours.
Yep. We're going to discuss what's coming up here in the next few days with President Trump released supposedly declassified all the evidence of the JFK.
And get in with a buddy of mine who's done a lot of research on this subject, and we're going to really get maybe some deep stuff that people didn't really think about. Just something to think about. We're not guaranteeing we're right.
Or wrong.
But we're going to give you something to think about, huh, Mike?
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, we'll get my opinion.
Don't podcast flow, tell it right, and go loud, you know. One brings the knowledge, the other keeps it straight. The changes in game, standing brain, brain spin fast. Dropping knowledge bombs on the mic. Pop Dr. John keeps it straight, making sure it's tight. Together they're a force, a podcast that will so fly, bringing truth and wisdom, reaching for the sky. And Dr. John, you're not already let it out.
How you like that, Mike?
So everybody's aware of what's going on with President Trump releasing the files with JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King. There's been some pushback from the Martin Luther King family, I guess. Because,
Has there?
Yeah, because they want to see all what they're going to release beforehand, for fear that it'll shine like a dark side of the MLK. But whatever. I mean, who cares at this point?
What do you
really?
mean dark? Well,
but
we'll get into that some other time.
Yeah, tonight we're going to talk about the JFK assassination and Lee Harvey Oswald, and Mr. West here is our local.
He's really a historian on this. He spent years researching it. What made you decide to dig into this, Mike?
Oh, it was just a lifelong thing where I liked presidents as a young child, and the thing is I followed along, and of course I was in school when Kennedy got killed, and the thing is that it really messed me up for at least the first week after that, because I couldn't watch no cartoons because everything was all about John F. Kennedy for the next week on TV.
And you remember that day vividly too, don't you?
Oh yeah, I do remember it.
I mean, it's like the World Trade Center going down. I remember everything that day.
So,
pretty monumental.
But anyway, like I'm with the rest of the world. There are only like 2 people in the whole world that don't remember where they were at on the day that Kennedy was
Who was that?
Richard Nixon and George H.W. Bush.
And where were they?
They don't remember.
In Dallas.
But they couldn't remember they were in Dallas.
No.
So that's kind of weird, isn't it? That they couldn't remember where they were, but they were in Dallas where the assassination happened.
Oh, they were absolutely there. Yeah.
Nixon and Bush.
Absolutely. Nixon was a Bushman, by the way. So.
Well, yeah.
Footnote.
Bushman.
Bushman. He was basically recruited by the Bush family.
And isn't that funny how far back that Bush family goes with stuff?
It goes way back farther than we even know, but the fact is that they're knee-deep into all the evil pirate things going on Earth. So
Who was the leader of the Bush family then?
then, say when.
I mean, with the Nixon, you said George H.
Prescott.
Bush, and you said that they were doing a lot of dastardly things. I mean, was there?
Well, that goes back probably Samuel Bush with Remington.
Oh, that far.
Oh, it goes way back.
Yeah, World War I, because they supplied a lot of weaponry, for World War I and armaments for World War I. But then Samuel Bush's son was Prescott Bush, who was Skull and Bones, graduated Yale University in 1918. Prescott Bush was the father of the 2 Bush presidents. And so they are deeply embedded into the Kennedy thing.
Well, he'd been father to one and grandfather to the other one, right? It's been George Sr. and George Jr.
Yeah, of course. Prescott Bush was the father of George H.W. Bush, who was Skull and Bones 1948, and George H.W. Bush was father of George W. Bush, who was Skull and Bones 1968 or 9, something in that area. But one way or the other, they, through their ties and their Nazi ties, I would say Nazi ties, through their ties in banking and the.
So we don't want the Bush family to be watching this podcast because we're really, we're really implicated.
They already know, and they probably have learned to shun it pretty good,
I hope so.
So, well, I mean, thing is it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. It is
You know,
what it is.
I hate that term, and maybe it ain't what it ain't. All I can say is that
Let me ask you this,
they're
Mike.
knee deep in.
With this coming out with JFK, how much do you think is actually going to be released? Do you think it's going to be 100% declassified for the public, for people like me, you, and John, to actually read who the players were and how it actually happened? Or do you think they're just going to stick to the single shooter narrative, you know, like have something basically produced in Hollywood, you know what I mean?
Well, so that's like a triple question, but one way or the other, I would say that getting anything declassified that has anything to do with the CIA is going to be a difficult task anyway.
Right.
All right, because the CIA is going to want to protect their reputation or whatever they're getting into right now. All right, and you know that Kennedy wanted to disassemble the CIA, so if you go back to that point, there was a reason that he wanted to disassemble the CIA. They're still together, and
Right.
the fact is they want to stay together, so there's a lot of incriminating evidence in these papers that they're not going to want to let it get out, so it's not going to be the easiest thing in the whole wide world to declassify.
So you don't think it will be? You think we're
it's
going
going to be kind of watered down?
to get a redacted version, basically,
A redacted version, and you're not going to get a lot of the
detailed?
really juicy stuff that they've already
Yeah, kind of what I thought.
hidden away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
You were talking about like this Prescott Bush guy and Nixon.
Yeah, what about him?
I mean, how they were going about trying to find him, and they were trying to
Well,
actually
so
set him
they-
up for the
so
presidency, basically, huh?
To bring Nixon into the fold, they didn't know it was going to be Nixon, but the fact is that they actually put a ad in a newspaper in California. Their company was going to California, all right, and it just happened to be the town that Nixon was from, and the name of the town's not coming to me, but I think it started with a W, but anyway, the name of the town in California is not coming to me, but they put an ad in there, and they wanted a despicable person that wanted to be a congressman.
Despicable.
Yeah, they literally come out and said something similar to that, and so, but anyway, the guy that,
They interviewed everybody.
he answered the ad and he was a Navy officer. Nixon was a naval officer, and he had a college education and stuff, and he answered the ad, and, you know, he became.
They backed him and put him in
He won the
Congress.
46 election, and he was a senator from 47 to 50, and then he got on the ticket with, and Prescott Bush takes credit for putting Nixon on the ticket with Ike, with
Eisenhower.
Dwight David Eisenhower
Yeah.
for president, and he became the vice president in 1952, and of course history shows that he was the vice president for 8 years till he ran for president against Kennedy and lost in a small margin, you know, and there's a lot of stories.
So they were
about
setting
that.
him up for the presidency.
Of course, they wanted him to be the president, you know, and there's like the old song, "Everybody wants to rule the world."
Oh, yeah.
There's more than one faction that wants to run the world, right? And back then, it was definitely a divided force, but the big businessmen and all that stuff.
So Kennedy wins, beats Nixon, and everybody's pissed off. These guys are all pissed off Kennedy's in
Right.
there.
Wasn't supposed to happen that way.
One's supposed to happen, right? So now he's got this faction of people that don't want him, and then what happens? I mean,
Well, the thing is that was a two-sided coin because, you know, Kennedy's pops was, you know, Joseph Kennedy. He was in cahoots with the mob for years, and he was also a banker. So the thing is that being a banker means that he was, by 1960, he was tied in to information that you could only get through being close to the Federal Reserve. And had he not been tied into that in the early part of his career, in the 1920s, for example, 1929, the crash of the market, Joseph Kennedy, all right, was worth like $4 million, all right? By 1935, while everybody else was starving and, you know, having a rough way to go, he was worth $100 million, all right?
How'd that happen?
So in the period of
It's like
5 or
Elon
6
Musk.
years, he enhanced his wealth very greatly off the despair of the rest of the country, and he dealt in bootlegging and whatnot. And the thing is that it's a very well-known deal. I mean, of course, then he went on to become the ambassador to England, and took his children over there and whatnot. And so, but Joseph Kennedy was tied in with the mafia, and the thing is that the mafia by 1960, all right, was knee-deep partners with the CIA, all right, and neither one of them were controlled by the government. I mean, we like to think that them are government entities, but those entities are rogue entities that are not rogue in the sense that they control themselves, but they're rogue in the sense that the government has little control over what they do. So, and that's another podcast.
That's another podcast in itself, huh? So we got Prescott Bush on one side, and then we got the Kennedy family on the other side. Kennedy wins the election. Then, and we got, go ahead.
By now, Prescott Bush is kind of
Out of it?
no, he's not out of it. He's just in the back. He's in the back.
Just back
You got
watching.
George H.W. Bush, who's running an operation, a CIA operation to overcome Castro. All right, and if you think about that in itself, see, we could. I don't know exactly where you want to go with this whole thing, but I can tell you that the CIA, all right, and the mafia both had huge interest in Cuba.
Okay.
And the thing is the CIA had huge interest in Cuba because who controls the CIA had huge business investments in Cuba.
What do they do, drugs and stuff?
Sugar,
Sure, oh, just, okay, normal stuff. Land, sugar.
oil, those type of things.
Oh, they's moving on their resources.
Yes, on resources, exactly. So, but then on the other hand, you had the mafia who was running the gambling.
Yeah, that's about the
They
time
run
Vegas was taking
casinos.
off in the 60s too, wasn't it? I
Well,
mean, Nevada and the gambling.
A little bit after that, but the thing is that at that time, mafia had big interest in Cuba and had casinos in Cuba, and when Castro took over, he basically nationalized the businesses of Cuba, all right, and took away a lot of the things from the mafia and the government and whatnot, this, that, and the other. So there was interest in getting rid of Castro to get back what they had invested.
Ah, okay, I didn't know that. Did you know that?
Sure, Havana's famous for the gambling and everything before Fidel Castro took over. They've written songs about Havana being...
I never really paid attention to it.
Well, that's the way that is. And so moving on,
So they went in, Kennedy was pissed.
Kennedy wasn't pissed.
I think it all-
Well, I thought he
Kennedy
wouldn't go in-
inherited that thing.
I thought he wouldn't go in there and help them though.
Actually, they were invading areas of Cuba and doing not so much an invasion, but they were infiltrating areas of Cuba as in the very last days of the Eisenhower administration, and Kennedy inherited that. All right, and the fact is that at that time, you know, when he come in like any other president, and this is a very big thing. The president goes in there thinking that they're going to have total control of things, all right? Well, then they find out through the establishment and what's been already status quo, the bureaucrats that are there to protect the status quo, and the CIA and the FBI and the controllers of, you know, the controllers being the people with the money, which would be your Federal Reserve people.
So that basically brings us to the point why they why they killed him, right? Why he was killed. Now,
You lead me there. Where do you want to go with that?
well, let's go ahead and talk about the assassination itself, the Zapruder film, and what you were telling me about the limousine in the wrong lane, and when you watch the film, you can see that it's heavily edited at the beginning, where the police come around the corner off of was it Houston on the Main or Main on to Houston?
Yeah, tell us about that. What's going on as a Zapruder film?
Well, the Zapruder film was actually a very good film. And what they did with the Zapruder film, I mean, actually in the first days of the Zapruder film, all right, they had actually made 3 copies of it, all right? And there was one really good copy and one copy that was not so good on the dark side and one copy that was not so good on the bright side or whatever, one way or the other. Everybody wanted the film.
Just so we're clear and everybody knows, that's the famous video that we've all seen of the
Car
JFK,
going down the...
JFK assassination.
Yeah, that's that famous film.
And it's, well, it's been pretty, as Mike's about to get into, it's been edited
Heavily edited.
and messed with just for, you know.
Well, in those days, heavily editing is like
Chopping
it's
stuff
like-
out.
It's like Walt Disney stuff. you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty basic stuff. Today, they would have been able to take that film and make it whatever they wanted.
Right.
Could have done a whole new film out of it.
Sure.
Yeah, but
With
the
the
thing,
AI.
The thing is that in those days, it was the editing was limited. And so the editing that they done was to slow things down, cut things out, damage some things here and there. And the actual film itself has never been seen by the general public. The actual film itself had been seen by dozens of people before the editing, but the actual film itself has never been seen by the general public because in
We've just seen parts of it.
yes, and as I mentioned to you guys in the conversation we had, there's a fellow named Dino Brugioni that worked for, I believe, Kodak. All right, I'm not 100% sure who he worked for, but his name was definitely Dino Brugioni, and that dude, he's seen the video, and there is a video of him saying how he seen Kennedy's head going blasting straight up in the air. All right, just blood flying everywhere, and that's what everybody that's seen the original film got to see. All right, so anyway, that as far as the Zapruder film goes, Abraham Zapruder, he sold the film for X amount of dollars, I think $50,000 originally to Life magazine, maybe. I'm
Right.
pretty sure it was Life, but anyway, then I think he gave a copy to the Dallas Secret Service. I'm not sure who ended up with that copy, but the copy he ended up having, he ended up selling it also, and he got like movie rights, this, that, and the other. And it set him up, but he sold it for a lot less than what he could have got out of it because it was evidence. And I don't know if you guys have ever watched the films of that day in Dallas, Texas, because if you look at those films, you can see when Kennedy got out of the plane and his wife got out of the plane and they were going around, he was right up mingling with the crowd and all of that stuff. These films are so clear and they got clarity. And you can see right on up to where he's going down through Dallas, you know, and all the people are waving and you can see all the clarity.
Until we get to that.
Until we get to the films on Dealey Plaza. And the films in Dealey Plaza, and this is my personal opinion at this point.
Yeah.
There is film, all right, not just the Zapruder film, but there is film that has high quality detail, and it was taken by the very same people, the news
That
people,
took all the other film.
that took all the other.
Ah, yeah, I get what
And
you're saying.
we've never seen it.
Yeah.
It's out there. I'll guarantee it, all right? In my heart, I believe this.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how
It
all
is
that
my
good film,
opinion,
they get up to the
however,
assassination, all of a sudden,
It's all
it's all
very-
shitty film.
Right. 8 millimeter.
Right, and you get that,
I mean, it's
and
like
then
they're covering something up.
it's all a bunch of crap, and it's exactly what it is, and the people who shot the film are involved in it. And matter of fact,
Oh, yeah?
one of the guys that was involved in trying to purchase the film was Dan Rather. All right, and Dan Rather went in, and he was allowed to see the film according to their agreement that everybody was allowed to look at the film, They weren't allowed to look at it twice. They had to make their offer, this, that, and the other. I don't know all the details of it. But Dan rather than sticking to the rules, he ran right back to the news station, and he comes out on the news station, and he's got this crazy story. And the story he tells is far from what he just seen on that film. It's like he was paid to say what he said on that film, and he makes sure to talk about the 3-bullet thing, all right, the 3-shot thing, all right?
What's that?
So, the 3 shots.
There's
They're
3 shots
supposedly fired by Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh, okay.
At this point, I'll interject that Lee Harvey Oswald never fired a shot. Not one.
I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald
Lee
fired a
Harvey
shot either.
Oswald was unconsciously, all right, he did not know that he was part of the plot.
He was a patsy.
He was there. He was a patsy. He did not know he was part of the plot, all right? It came only to him after they arrested him.
He realized he got set up.
Then he knew, he started putting 2 and 2 and 4 to 4 together, and it goes way back on that. So, I mean, because Lee Harvey Oswald
How did they get Oswald anyhow? I mean, where did this guy come from to make him a patsy? He was part of the CIA or what?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you don't go to Russia in the 1950s, all right?
And marry a Russian woman.
And you don't, first of all, Russia was communist.
Yeah,
all right?
Cold War.
And to leave Russia in those years, you had to defect. Defect mean you had to sneak the hell out of there somehow or other, because they wasn't going to just
You weren't just walking out of there.
They weren't going to let you just leave.
You couldn't just walk in either,
Yeah,
though.
you had to defect.
How did he
And
get
to
in?
into Russia as an American citizen, I'm pretty sure you had to have you had to know some pretty good tricks. all right?
And him being part of the CIA, probably get him
Well,
in there.
the thing is I'm not sure
he
what
was
all
allowed
the
to go.
intelligence ends of it are, but just I mean, just looking at it, from the way.
So he goes to Russia and he marries a woman.
He married the daughter of a Russian
And they bring
officer.
And
He was an officer.
and he gets back here with her.
Yeah.
And
comes back.
then how
He
did
comes back after he supposedly defects, and he comes back.
and then they decide to set him up for this assassination. That's what I don't get. What
And the thing is that now, that part right there might have been an ongoing thing for a couple of years, all right, because I'm pretty sure that once they realized what Kennedy was up to, they didn't want him around. But as far as what Oswald's part in the thing is he was nothing more than what he said he was a patsy, and you can make a whole nother podcast about Oswald himself.
So who shot Kennedy? Who do you think? How'd this happen? How'd this happen? Oswald didn't shoot
It
him,
was an
obviously.
elaborate conspiracy. It wasn't just a tiny.
From your research you've done, what have you kind of come up with?
This is an elaborate conspiracy. I mean, and I'm not going to say it was a beautifully coordinated elaborate conspiracy, but it was an elaborate conspiracy, all right? And how it actually came down was through the top. And in my mind, through the top is the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, people that have the interest at the top are pulling the strings of the organizations below them. And the organizations below them are every organization, because they own
Everything. Yeah.
Okay, so they own the oil industry, they own the money, they own the
media.
central banks, you know what I mean? They own technology, they own every single, they own or control every single thing that we depend on, all right?
Pretty much,
And
yeah.
depended on, all right? And the thing is that them calls came from the very top. But anyway, next question.
So they set this up. Elaborate situation.
No.
And Oswald's up on the grassy knoll that they're trying to convince everybody.
He wasn't even there.
Oswald was not even there. He was in the building. He was strategically placed in the building.
But they're trying to convince everybody of this.
His handler was George de Mohrenschildt. All right, George de Mohrenschildt. Fast forward to when he was going to testify in the Senate Assassinations Committee on the assassination of John F. Kennedy, came up dead, as did a whole bunch of the other guys, the Cuban guys and stuff like that, when this Senate committee came up in the 70s, all right?
They're all dead.
They started dying off like this, just as like they did back in the 60s when the witnesses all ended up dying. But who didn't die? Let's look at the people who didn't die.
Who didn't die?
George H.W. Bush.
He didn't die, did he?
He was still kicking.
He became president.
Nixon was still kicking. John Connally was still kicking.
Who's John Conley?
John Connally was the governor of
Texas?
and he was in the car. He actually got shot. I ain't real sure they didn't want to buff him off, too, but the thing is that that's another story, too.
She supposedly got hit by what they called the magic bullet.
Who? Conley?
Yeah, it hit him like in the shoulder and came out by his hand or something, after it had gone through, supposedly.
Oh, it blew out his rib cage, went through his arm, through his wrist, and hit him in the leg. But that was after it went through Kennedy's back, out Kennedy's neck, came straight out, and then did a woo-woo-woo, and did a hard right-hand turn, and then did a woo, and did a hard left-hand turn, and then hit Connally.
So obviously there was more than one
So
shooter.
this was the magic bullet for sure.
So obviously there was more than one shooter.
Well, there's...
Oh, absolutely. There was like 8 shooters. All right. There would have been at least 8 shooters. 6 of them were probably witnessed by the original witnesses. I mean, I can't name all the witnesses.
They come up dead.
Amos Ewing. I can't remember all the witnesses. There was witnesses there. Well, some of the witnesses came up dead, and some of them didn't. All right, but
Like Helmer
Lee
Greenberg.
Bowers was
Who?
Helmer Greenberg, he was there the day they assassinated Kennedy.
Okay.
And he's basically saying right along the same lines as Mike that it's not what they said it was, and it's not. It didn't
So you're
go
saying
down.
about 8
Yeah.
shooters.
Well, see now, and the thing is that they wanted to make it look like it was just one crazy
Guy.
lunatic assassin, all right? And they set Oswald up for the thing, all right? And the thing is that it didn't work out so good for him because the first couple shooters, all right, missed and made contact but didn't kill him, all right? The idea was he had to be dead, all right? Because if he wasn't dead, the Kennedy legacy could go on because you got Kennedy then, and he was a shoo-in for 64. And in 68, his brother Bobby would have been the president. Bobby might have been president for another 8 years. Then Ted Kennedy might have been president for 4 years, and Ted Kennedy might have been president for 8 years.
Could have had 20
And so
years, these guys.
These people that wanted to stifle the whole thing knew that they had to clean this thing up right on the first
And
deal.
Bobby, if you remember, was assassinated as well by Sirhan.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of questions involving that, whether he even killed him or not, because
I'll answer that right now. Sirhan was a Manchurian candidate, guaranteed double your money back. Bobby Kennedy was shot at close range
in the back.
behind the
Yeah.
head, all right?
even his coroner report says that he was shot in the back.
Close range, behind the head. Sirhan never got closer than that chair over there to him. And then he did shoot the shots, but he doesn't remember doing any of that stuff. And mind control is a CIA thing. So
And drugs. All of them had big drugs, and even like Jack Ruby when he killed Oswald
there was more than
was
just the
completely
drugs, but
screwed
yeah.
on psychedelics when he did it.
Well, that's possible. I don't know about that story, but I do know that Jack Ruby, he had interest, and he thought that he was protecting his interests as well.
So the car's coming down, turning onto what street?
So you're saying the one, when it came off Main Street, it was
Off Main.
originally supposed to go right straight through the triple overpass, all right? But then they detoured it, all right, against regulations. The president's car with an open top was never supposed to go below 44 miles an hour, if I'm correct in remembering that. But anyway, they made the turn off of Main Street onto Houston Street, all right, and then you can see, and this is where Zapruder started filming his film, and you can see the car coming, and then all of a sudden, you can't see it make the turn onto Elm Street in front of the school book depository, but then all of a sudden you see the car again, all right, and then next thing you know, you see the president getting shot and whatnot. And well, the part that they cut out where it was edited out, where they came around from Houston on Elm Street, because the driver of the limousine overturned that turn, which was almost a backwards left turn. You know,
Yeah.
like maybe 102 degrees.
Yeah,
instead
you're
of
really
90
coming
degrees,
right,
you know,
yeah.
110 degrees, who knows? But anyway, it's a pretty sharp backwards left turn, and he got way over to the right lane. Well, he adjusted the car from the right lane, which was not really necessary, to get back into the center lane, right? Which was necessary. Does that make any sense? And the reason it was necessary is because he had to be in the center lane for the shooters to all have their perfect shots, including their ace in the hole. All right, so.
Who's the ace in the hole?
You want to get to that right now?
No, you can go on to the other things. You can tell me, but don't forget we asked this question.
All right, so anyway. So anyway, well, the car had to be in the center lane. And as you see in the Zapruder film, you see the car slow down, all right? You never see it stop in the Zapruder film, but one thing you do see in the Zapruder film to let you know that the car was not only maybe stopped, or very, 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 very slow, almost to a stop, like one of the officers from the Dallas Police Department says, is that you can see Clint Hill running from the reverse of the car and jumping onto the car about the same time Jackie climbs out of the car to go back on the back of the car to retrieve her husband's brains. She retrieves her husband's brains, she goes back into the car. She literally says, I got my husband's brains in my hand.
Go ahead.
And at that time, you see Clint Hill, the Secret Serviceman, running in the film. You can see him running and catching the car. Now listen, human being can only run so fast, especially when they got them shiny loafers on.
Yeah, 15, 16 mile an hour.
16 mile an hour, that dude wasn't doing 5 or 6 miles.
The most.
Yeah.
These NFL guys run 20-some mile an hour, but that guy, most, he could possibly do 15, 16 miles if he's lucky.
He started from a nothing and made his way onto
so that
the
car could barely be moving if he could catch it and jump on it.
And the thing is there was 50-some witnesses that the car came to a stop, all right? And the car came to a stop because that driver, that there's people that say the driver shot Kennedy. That's not the truth, all right? The driver looked around. The driver was part of the assassination, all right? And he did turn and look to see if Kennedy was dead. When he seen that Kennedy was dead, then he nailed it to get out of there, all right? Well, he did not fire a shot, all right? When that car came to a stop, it came to a stop at a precise point. And you could actually, in some films, you can look and see there was a police car ahead of them going into the triple overpass, and it flashed its brake lights as it was going into the triple overpass, after it got a signal from the guy with the umbrella. The guy with the umbrella signals, all right, they hit their brake lights. The brake lights that gave a signal to the driver of the car to stop the car. And the car had to be stopped at a certain point, which was they already knew that certain spot. And that spot was within 20 feet of a storm drain, where there was the guy who blasted Kennedy's head.
And that's the ace in the hole.
Into the backwards. That was their ace in the hole. Guaranteed. If you've ever shot a gun, all right, you're not going to shoot a gun from the top of the grassy knoll down. All right, hit this man from the side, actually when he's actually a little bit past you, and make his brains and his head go up, back, and to the left, all right?
Yeah.
If anything, you're going to shoot through his head, all right, or whatever, and lay him onto Jackie, and possibly even shoot Jackie.
Yeah.
All right, but the other thing is I don't think they were worried about none of that. But the guy in the storm drain had a perfect shot from, I'm telling you, from here to your stove. All right.
20 feet or so.
from here to your stove, and he was in that storm drain standing up, all right? And when he made that shot made that trajectory that you see in the Zapruder film, and they've actually cut out a lot of that, but you see Jackie going back to pick up his brains?
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's because his head, part of his head landed on the back of the car towards the driver's side, all right, from that shot. And so there's way more to the story, but that grassy knoll thing, after they couldn't convince everybody that Oswald was
The shooter.
the lone shooter, which was a pretty impossible.
Well, he left the gun behind.
It was a pretty impossible feat anyway.
You know what I mean?
But,
He supposedly shot the president and then left the gun there.
well, somebody else placed the gun there.
Right, that's what
and
I'm
said
saying.
he left it,
It
without
was,
a doubt.
it was just a pretty impossible feat anyway.
So then what? Then they come up with this
So-
grassy knoll deal?
Well, so, and then there were people that witnessed the grassy knoll, all right? Well, one of those films that was taken, you can find where, and it might have been Orville Nick's film, maybe, I don't know, where the police officer on a motorcycle, all right, threw his motorcycle down, literally had to pick it back up and was trying to stand it, and the whole time he was doing it, he's looking right into that storm gutter. His eyes are zoomed onto that storm gutter, while everybody else is running up the grassy knoll to see where that shot came from. All right, by the way, that shot came from Woody Harrelson's dad, the actor Woody Harrelson.
Yeah?
Charles Harrelson was Woody Harrelson's dad.
He's in prison still for murder.
No, he's dead.
Oh, did he die?
He's dead and gone.
But
was-
he died in prison though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
He was part of the CIA or something?
he was a shooter that day. I'm not sure if he was CIA or what he was, but he was a shooter. He was a gun for hire. Guns for hire, and the ones, I mean, they paid each one of those guys in the vicinity of $50,000, and $50,000 in 1963.
Was a lot.
Fair amount of money.
Oh, that would buy you about, somewhere in the vicinity of 6 or 7 brand-new Cadillacs.
Oh, at least.
Huh?
Easily.
I don't know, maybe more.
Buy you a house, a couple of cars, and you have plenty of money to live on for a
You
while.
could buy you a mediocre house, just for
Yeah.
50 grand alone, buy you a mediocre
That's
house.
about $5,000
Brand
probably.
new mediocre house.
Yeah, probably about $5,000.
With a garage and a brand new car.
Car about $1,000, $1,200
The house
bucks.
would have been like 15 grand in those days. And
I bet it's cheaper than that, unless you was
No,
buying a fucking
it wasn't-
Zubert house.
I'm giving you good
I'm
numbers.
talking about a shack I'd buy. It'd be about $5,000 back then. I'd just buy
Yeah,
me a
but you're not
modest
getting
house.
a brand new shack.
No, not a brand new shack.
It's amazing though, all the people that have witnessed this, the actual assassination, basically all had different accounts of what happened.
Well, I don't think we're ever gonna-
They seen something from a different angle. And going back to the Zapruder film, there, you can see where it was messed with, where there's a tree on the grass, it's actually cut in half, gone. And then there's another one where you'll see it, there's like a little girl, like running down the grass. And then in another one, she just like disappears, vaporizes, you know what I mean? So you could tell that the film had been messed with by the time.
And they didn't have the technology that we have now, so
No.
a lot of the mistakes showed up.
Well, they could have just erased all of it, you know,
They've had
nowadays.
60 years to clean up the whole deal. So going back to where we started.
Well, now here's something to think about. The technology they got now, if that film's still around, imagine the stuff that they could do with it.
I
in changing
guarantee you
that film.
there's still an original film around. All right, I'd be willing to bet. This is a crazy thing. This is me.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and get my medication, huh?
Okay.
I'd be willing to bet.
Double it up.
I'd be willing to bet that John F. Kennedy's skull, maybe even his whole body, is in the possession of the skull and bones at Yale University. All right.
Well, there was a big
I
fight.
mean, this is crazy talk, but I'm telling you, these people are that evil. All
There
right?
was a big fight over his body after the
It wasn't
assassination.
his body, though. The
Well-
thing is that they blew his head off.
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, there's like Frank Sturgis come right out in an interview and said that they were body switching people back then to make sure that, you know, if they did something wrong, it had to coincide with their conspiracy. Well, the thing is they wanted to make this like all the shots came from the back. All right, when these shots all came from the front and they had witnesses of it, they had to do something for the body on the autopsy. And I believe this. This is not my theory, but I've heard it and I believe it, that J.D. Tippit was the body for John F. Kennedy. All right, so.
I know they didn't want the Dallas coroner to do the autopsy. And
Oh, they took control of the body,
They took-
which
right.
was illegal.
Brought all their own
and flew it
stuff
back to
in.
Washington.
That was illegal.
That's where his
Yeah.
autopsy took place, was back in Washington, which, you know, right there tells us that there was some hijinks going on. Here, whoa,
I like that.
check that out.
Should have turned it off, but we're getting sloppy tonight.
But yeah, this is probably gonna be a two-parter, because
Yeah.
once it's
What
released.
time is it?
Or 10.
We've been, or 10, we've been probably going about a half hour, probably.
Yeah, so, what do you think?
I think I'm good for another 5-10 minutes before I gotta pee.
All right, but we'll finish this out. Well, that's
What a
some
great
interesting
guest.
stuff. So you're actually saying you think there was a guy hiding down in the storm sewer, from what you have studied,
Oh, yeah.
and blew his head off from there?
There's actually a police report of that fella, and his name eludes me right now, but I know his name. Larry something.
Because everybody's got their own idea of what happened on this.
No, listen here. There's a police report of a guy who got a job with false credentials, all right, at the Lincoln Mercury dealer on the other side of the triple overpass, and he came into work late, all right, and he had mud up the back of his clothes and whatnot, all right, and he was dirty and filthy, and he came in late for work, and he went straight into the bathroom and threw up. And now, one guy says that he thinks it's because he was in a sewer. He wasn't in a sewer, he was in a storm drain.
Yeah, which is a sewer. I mean, it's a storm sewer for
It's a storm drain.
water runoff.
It's a storm drain. It's not a sewer where
Yeah,
there's a bunch
but we
of
call it
people.
storm sewer.
Yeah, you can call it whatever you want, but it wasn't like it was.
Wasn't a human
It wasn't
waste
passing
sewer.
feces or nothing
No,
like
it's
that,
just
you know,
storm
so-
sewer, just
But
runoff
anyway,
water.
then they thought, and they had heard of the president getting shot, and they thought he acted suspicious, and they actually called the police, and there was a police report made of it. All right, and he was the guy who did shoot Kennedy in the head and killed him.
This guy at the dealership,
Now, Kennedy was probably dead already. All right.
from getting shot in the back and hitting the
He
neck.
got shot in the back, he got shot in the neck. I mean, I'm telling you right now, if the man would have survived all of that, he'd have been
You'd have been a vegetable.
pretty tough. But the fact is that they knew he was dead once that shot was made. But now they had to fix a bunch of things because they wanted to be the lone gunman theory.
And you got 3 shots, you got all these shots going off from everywhere.
Yeah, they wanted 3 shots, a nice clean story they already had made up and stuff like that. And the thing is that they had a lot of cleaning up to do, and believe me, they made a mess for themselves, and the mess is 66 years old, and they're still hiding it.
Right,
Yeah, most of the featured players are dead.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty much all of them.
nobody that knows anything about it believes that Lee Harvey Oswald has anything to do with it. All right?
I don't believe Oswald did it.
Other than he was placed in there as, just as what he said, he was a patsy. All right? So, and the fact is, that's all he was. So.
Pretty crazy that's, you know.
The storm sewer drain is one of the conspiracy theories, I guess you could say, which, by the way, the Kennedy assassination is what coined the phrase conspiracy theory. You never heard, you never really heard that uttered before the Kennedy assassination. And
then when they threw that out there, they didn't just throw it out there once or twice. They made it look like, okay, so did the mafia do it?
Right.
Or did a rogue entity do it? Or did this one lone
Well, the more
assassin
fingers
do it?
they could
Did
point,
the
the
CIA
more
do
pressure
it?
took off
Did,
them.
Did,
Well,
did
how many-
Castro do it?
right, how many of the conspiracy theories was actually created by the people that did it? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Well, that's how you-
all of them.
that's how you take
Every
the-
single one of them.
Well, that's how you take the sight off of you.
Right.
Create a bunch of conspiracy theories and then everybody quits looking at you.
Well,
Exactly.
and it just happens that each one of those rabbit holes you dig, so let's say you latch onto the idea that the mafia was totally behind it, And you dig down that for a while, and the next thing you know, you find out the mafia was doing partnership with the CIA. So you go down that for a while, and the next thing you know, you find out that the CIA is supposedly a government entity, but they're controlled by somebody else, all right? So you go down that for a while, and, you know, then Castro did it, so you go down that rabbit hole for a while, or did Russia do it? Is that you go down that rabbit hole for a while, and each and every rabbit hole, and then supposedly went after the Federal Reserve, all right? So you go down that rabbit hole for a while, and then he cut down the 27% oil depletion allowance for the oil men. So you go down that rabbit hole for a while. But when you get to the bottom of it, behind it all, the people that control every single one of those entities, all right, not Russia, maybe not Russia, maybe Russia, back then, maybe Russia, all right, are the same people. It's your people that control the central banks of the world. The people that control the central banks of the world are behind every single problem this earth has.
And it's always been that way, and it's going to stay that way.
It's that way, and they are behind everything. And believe me, they let some people are willing to sell their soul, all right, for that richness so they can live good and large all their life. And then at the end of their life, you know, it's a little too late to repent. You know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Yeah.
You know, the grassy knoll thing could have just been echoes of the gun being fired from the sewer. You know what I mean? That because people were right there, close to that, and they heard it. You know, everybody heard.
Yeah, and I don't know what a gun would sound shooting off inside of a storm sewer. And
right, it's got to echo.
What it's going to sound like.
That cop went right straight to it. There's a film of it.
I'm looking for it. I can't seem to.
He heard it, huh?
Do something.
I know there's 8 different. These are the 8 top conspiracy theories as to who shot him and why. So it's kind of, you know, it's just really, here's the storm drains. All your storm drains there. And the grassy knoll's right behind the one storm drain that they think he was shot from.
Well, you know what?
Well, the projection of the bullet, you got to look at the projection.
It's from the below, I believe.
And the thing is that right there should take everybody's doubt right away.
Right.
Because the projection of the bullet cannot possibly go from the top of the grassy knoll and do what it did in that film.
Right.
And then if you have anybody say that film was tampered with, yes, it was tampered with.
Absolutely.
But that's one thing they couldn't change.
We're going to cut her short.
Please do that.
So.
Hey, can I take a bathroom break?
Go ahead.
You're going to. We're going to cut it out. We had Mike West tonight as our guest, talking about some stuff I thought was really cool.
It was cool.
And I don't know. We'll have him back.
I just got to tell everybody that I'm going to be gone for a little while. I'm going to be leaving town for work for a few weeks, so Dr. John's probably going to have...
I might have a couple guests sit in for Ed or catch him here and there. It's going to get sporadic, but we're going to keep making shows.
Yeah, we're going to keep making them. It's just going to be a little while before we get back to being regular and normal.
Thanks, everybody, for catching us on Rumble. It's doing well.
That's pretty cool.
We made 11 cents.
Yeah. At this rate, we'll break even by the time we're 90. But thanks everybody for tuning in and watching us. Tell your friends about us. You know, the more likes and shares and the more sense we're going to make. You know, so and we're not really in it for the money. John and I just kind of like speaking our minds, and we like having our friends on so they can also speak their minds.
Yeah, this is the country. What the country people think. We're out in the sticks. We're talking to people from out in the country, not the city. Just common folks of the country, trying to give you a little different spin on things.
Right. And even though we're not all city folk, we're not all stupid either.
So,
I'm Little Ed.
I'm Dr. John.
This has been another installment of Enough already.
Yeah, installment my ass. Thanks for watching.
Good night, everybody.
Dropping knowledge bombs on the mic.
Got the same song twice in a row. Can you imagine that?
Together they're a
Improvement.
broadcast duo so
Mike's funny here. I said, okay, he's got to take a leak. He's ready to go. Beat it. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you being on the show tonight. Sorry, Melvin, we went back to the old show. One of the emails is Ed and Dr. John at gmail.com. That's our email address. Coming back, Mike will wave goodbye, say goodnight. Before I cut it off. Good night, everybody.
I think I said Gino, but maybe it was Dino.